hypercar ever to pop out of Christian von Koenigsegg's sizable head. Only 125 will ever be made, costing around £2.3 million each. It uses a 5.1 litre twin-turbo flat-plane crank V8. Produces 1,578 brake horsepower and 1,106 pounds-feet of torque. To rev from idle to 8,500 RPM in 0.2 seconds. Keep it pinned, my son. Keep it pinned, Jack. 0 to 62 takes around 2.5 seconds, and theoretically, the top speed on this slightly softer, slippier, absolute version is the scary side of 310 miles an hour. 310! I say theoretical because no one's had the brass balls or the space to hit it yet. But they will. I think I need a lie down. But then again, you only live once, don't you? We're going again. We're definitely going again.
But the engine isn't even the most impressive bit. That goes to the new 9-speed light-speed transmission that laughs in the general direction of a twin-clutch box. It features 2 sets of 3 gears, creating 9 possible ratios, which means 6 individual clutches for the forward gears and a 7th for reverse. So all gears are constantly engaged and ready. And the benefits are many. Not only can you jump from one gear to any of the others, but it's also smaller and 2/3 the weight of a comparable double clutcher. Plus, it means the engine doesn't need a flywheel. Hence its appetite for revving like a superbike.
Honestly, the short stack of those first 5 or 6 gears, I just keep smashing into the limiter. I can't pull the pedals fast enough because the way this engine revs, it's like a really, really eager, naturally aspirated engine. It's got that hardcore edge to the sound as well, but you've got all that torque and all that turbocharged grunt as well. The spec is the stuff of sticky teenage dreams. We've got carbon fibre panels, carbon fibre tub, carbon fibre wheels, carbon ceramic brakes, clamped by in-house designed calipers. You'll find the Christian doesn't really like to buy in any technology that he can make better himself. All in, this car weighs 1,390 kilograms dry, which is 30 kilograms less than the Attack model, although in the Attack you do get 1,000 kilograms of downforce at 171 miles an hour, whereas in the Absolute version, 150 kilograms.
If you're unaware of Christian von Koenigsegg and his boutique hypercar company, you're in for a treat. It all began back in 1994 when a 22-year-old Christian founded Koenigsegg Automotive. His mission? To build the greatest supercar the world had ever seen. A concept vehicle, the Koenigsegg CC, was first seen in 1996, but it wasn't until 2002 that the CC850, Koenigsegg's first production car, finally arrived, scooping the Guinness World Record for the world's most powerful production engine, with a mere 655 horsepower. In 2003, a fire broke out at the original thatch-roofed factory, but Christian remained undeterred, launching the heavily upgraded 806 horsepower CCR in 2004, a car that hit 241 miles an hour at Nardo, officially ending the McLaren F1's reign as the world's fastest car. Next up, in 2006, was the CC850, which stood as the fastest car around the Top Gear test track for 7 years, despite the Stig having a rare glitch and binning it into a tyre wall. In 2007, the CC850R added E85 compatibility and lots more power. 2010 saw the arrival of the Agera, which evolved through various RS 1-to-1 and RS configurations, hoovering up more speed records as it went. In 2015, the hybrid Regera arrived with its funky direct drive gearbox and immediately melted any tyres within a 5-mile radius. In 2019, we got our first glimpse of the Jesko, a new generation of Koenigsegg hypercar with 300 mph plus potential, a distillation of everything learned over the last 2 decades. And then, in 2020, we got to see the Gemera, a 1700 horsepower 3-cylinder plug-in hybrid 4-seater, Koenigsegg's typically restrained take on a family car. And we also got to see the Jesko Absolute, a more streamlined, road-focused version of the Jesko. And that's the one we're driving today.
Alright, just a few things to point out to help you mark out the Absolute model from the Attack. And the first thing is you have a less aggressive front splitter on the Absolute model, and here the wheel arch vents are this rather attractive hole punched carbon fibre rather than big gaping vents that you get in the Attack model. These wheels are absolutely sensational, hollow core carbon fibre. They are actually hollow and made from 650 individual pieces of hand-laid carbon fibre, and metallic finish is quite special too. What they do is sand down the natural epoxy layer that forms on the top of the carbon fibre and then polish it up by hand. No one else does it because it just takes too long. And then the real difference is around the back of the Absolute model. No massive rear wing, but you do get these rather cool carbon fibre Batmobile style fins here, which help stability at high speed and help reduce drag. And the rear end itself is slightly wider, it's got a more sharper cut-off. That all helps with the aerodynamics of the car. You can have aero disc wheels on the rear wheels as well, because that's such an area of high turbulence. Cut in a shot of those aero disc wheels now because they are so cool. And now for the really nerdy bit. Koenigsegg has something called a triplex damper system. It's effectively a horizontal damper and spring that they fit at the rear and the front, and that helps reduce dive under braking and squat under acceleration. Now in the Attack model, you've got that in the front and the back. In the Absolute, you've only got one in the back. No spring, just the triplex damper, and you don't have one at all in the front. And the benefits of that are you can remove this roof panel and you've actually got somewhere to store it, which is handy.
The interior is fairly sparse. A portrait screen in the dash, a couple of cup holders, an instrument screen attached to the steering wheel that stays level even as you wind the lock on and works brilliantly. And there's more space for 2 in here than any Koenigsegg that's gone before.
And now I must make a confession, because earlier I got a little bit overexcited when I said this car produces nearly 1600 horsepower. It will, but only if you're running on E85 biofuel. Now you can buy E85 at pretty much every petrol station in Sweden. It costs about 20% less than super unleaded, but it will go about 30% less far on a tank. Today we'll be running on super unleaded, which unfortunately means we're going to have to make do with 1262 brake horsepower. The things I have to put up with, eh? So, the name Jesko is named after Christian von Koenigsegg's father, the man who helped him get this incredible company off the ground 28 years ago, which got us thinking. When they first launched the Jesko at the Geneva Motor Show, they made a small batch of Jesko beer. So what if we took a couple of bottles of Jesko, 2 Jesko, in a Jesko?
The plan couldn't be simpler. Jesko actually lives 5 hours north of the Koenigsegg factory, which is in Ängelholm, Sweden, so we kindly agreed to travel south and meet us at a family friend's house nearby. As a Brucey bonus, getting there will give us a chance to drive the Jesko on the public road.
A car that's this fast, this capable of over 300 miles an hour, for God's sake, has absolutely no right being this easy to drive at legal speeds. Anyone these days can just buy a 1,000 horsepower plus crate engine and drop it into anything, but getting all the components to talk to each other, to work in harmony at low speeds, at everyday speeds, that's the real challenge. That's where the engineering finesse comes in. So the steering is really light, it's got a whip crack fast ratio to it, and I like that. It suits the fizzy nature of the V8 engine behind you. The brakes are superb. I'm not even troubling them at road speeds, and they did the job on the track earlier. And then there's this 9-speed gearbox, which is really interesting actually, because you do get the occasional clunky shift. Full bore upshifts can be quite a violent kick in the back, but I suppose that's in keeping with the car's brutal nature. But it's the way that they group the gear ratio. So the steps between gears 1, 2 and 3 are super close. They're right on top of each other. And then between 4, 5 and 6 they're slightly wider. And then 7, 8 and 9 they're wider still. So I'm in 6th gear here now. If I upshift to 7th, you feel the revs drop right off, and it means that this car actually can behave as a perfectly good cruiser. The ride is certainly comfortable enough to do really good distance. In terms of that engine, it basically sounds and feels naturally aspirated. You can get some turbo lag to rear its head if you really get one of the high gears and put your foot down, and it takes a while to spool up, but you know, otherwise it makes some monstrous noises. If you get this engine on the overrun, here we go, we'll give it to the beans in 5th and then lift off. Can you hear that? Sounds like a flipping firework display. I've driven some hypercars in my time. I've driven some very, very fast cars, and all of them are pretty amazing feats of engineering, but most of them leave me in awe, but not actually wanting one. But this Jesko, honestly, it's an all-rounder. Wasn't expecting that.
And then, after many miles and a stop for some willies, we arrived at the Koenigsegg family friend's modest pile to deliver our package to Jesko.
Hello?
Oh,
Jesko, hello.
No.
I've brought you, Jesko, some Jesko in the Jesko. I've been waiting to say that
Jack,
for quite a while.
let's go in.
We should. Let's go and enjoy these. Cheers.
Cheers.
Or should we say, is it skål? Skål in Swedish. Tell me, what was Christian like when he was a kid?
Supercars. Don't you just love them? Particularly love this burgundy Lamborghini Diablo, actually. The thing about supercars is that they are so seductive that every year there's another company, isn't there, that thinks they can build the next new great one. So allow me to introduce 2022's newest supercar. It is the Praga Bohema. Oof, they are not messing about, are they? Now, don't tell me, you're thinking, that's not a road car, mate. That is a racing car. And you do have a point, because up until recently, Praga has been making its name building track-only racing cars. But I can prove this is street legal. It has indicators, there's somewhere to mount number plates, and later on I can even show you that it has a superior infotainment touchscreen to a Volkswagen Golf. But before we do that, I should probably spend some time explaining where Praga has come from. The answer is Czechia, formerly known as the Czech Republic and Czechoslovakia before that. This landlocked nation of 10 million people bordered by Austria, Germany, Poland and Slovakia already has a proud car building history, thanks to Skoda of course. But it's not the first place that pops into mind when you think of Europe's supercar elite. However, Praga, named after the Latin name for the Czech capital city of Prague, has been around longer than Ferrari, Lamborghini and Maserati. It even makes Porsche look like a toddler. Founded way back in 1907, Praga has filled those 115 years building just about anything you can bolt wheels and engines to. Trucks, buses, motorbikes, aircraft, even tanks. It built its first car in 1911, but the story of the new behemoth kicks off when Praga went racing in 2011. About a decade ago, Praga started to put itself back on the map with notably small, lightweight racing cars like the R1, a little carbon fibre stealth bomber with a 365 brake horsepower Formula Renault engine in the back. But a true supercar needs really silly numbers, right? So, the road car it's inspired has twice the power of the racing car. The engine, then. Praga considered several for the behemoth. They actually got sign-off from Audi to borrow their 5.2 litre naturally aspirated V10 from the back of an R8. But in the end, they went for the 3.8 litre twin-turbo V6 you would normally find in the front of a Nissan GTR. It's actually the first time that Nissan have let another manufacturer officially use that monster of an engine. And Praga say they went for it, yes, because it's a little bit lighter and easier to package in the car than the big old V10, but mostly because, well, as I'm sure you know, it is hugely tunable. So the Praga spec V6s are actually going to be built in the UK by Litchfield Motors. And if you know anything about this engine, you'll know that Ian Litchfield's company absolutely put itself on the map by pulling massive amounts of brake horsepower out of this very engine. So you're starting off in the behemoth in the kind of launch model, if you like, with 700 horsepower. But given what can be done with this motor, you'd have to say that the sky and, well, your bank account is the limit. Okay, the performance figures are still unconfirmed, but Praga's estimates sound a bit conservative to me. They're saying 0 to 62 miles per hour in under 3.5 seconds, which should be child's play for a 700 horsepower car that weighs less than a tonne. The top speed is 189 miles an hour. But does this look like a car that's worried about the top speed wars to you? Well, here's a clue. Praga is claiming 900 kilograms of downforce at 155 miles per hour. Now, obviously you can see from the shape of this thing that what it's all about is downforce and aero. I mean, particularly here, it just screams mini Aston Martin Valkyrie to me. But it might surprise you that there is no active aero on this car. There's no pop-up flaps hidden under the front, and that wing is fixed, doesn't act as an air brake. And the reason for that is that would all need hydraulics, and hydraulics add weight. And weight is an obsession for Praga to make this lighter than the supercars we're becoming used to. It's definitely going to be under a tonne. At the moment, the engineers say it's about 982 kilos, but they are still working on ways to shave off grams. And, well, can I please show you all the details now? So naturally, as prescribed in the supercar rulebook, all the bodywork is carbon fibre, the brakes are carbon ceramic, but it's the little touches I love. Stuff like these beautiful carbon fibre aero covers over the front wishbones, and even this enormous mirror support here, carbon fibre and specially shaped to help funnel air as it plunges into the intake. Thing is though, anyone can draw a car that looks fast. I mean, even I can do that and did plenty of it at school. It's designing a car that's fast and can still be used on the road. And remember, this is street legal. That is the tricky bit. So, some interesting points. Apparently, this front is going to get over a speed bump. You can drive the behemoth in the rain because it has the world's most elegantly hidden windscreen wiper. Don't worry about there being no back window because it's got a reversing camera, and the finished car will even have parking sensors, and there's even plenty of room for your luggage. Can you guess where? No, it's not in the nose. You open up your hidden side saddle, take out what looks like an overgrown violin case, and then if we just pop off all of these clasps, there you go, enough room for your helmets, your racing boots, your overalls, a pair of pants, and a toothbrush. That is very, very nicely packaged indeed. Right, now it's time for the bit that I've been dreading, climbing inside. Oh, yeah, I have been having to limber up for this one. Another similarity with the Aston Martin Valkyrie is that this is a supercar that you pretty much need a climbing license to get into. So here's the technique. Open the door, make sure the steering wheel is already off, and then sit on the intake here. Don't worry, it is designed for it. Then you gracefully swing your legs inside, plant them on a little footrest integrated into the seat, then basically do a chest dip into the tub, slide your feet down onto the pedals, and relax. And that is how you board a Praga Bohema. Okay, once you're inside, this is the technique for closing the door. Use one hand to pull it down and then the other hand to click it into place. Then you simply connect up your harness and attach the steering wheel, which goes on there, and then you adjust the steering wheel with a lever here, and there's one for the pedals as well, because of course the seat stays mostly fixed, though you can use a button here to change the angle of the backrest. Now, what a view this is. You can see perfectly the tops of the wheel arches, which really helps you place the car, and it feels incredibly narrow for a supercar as well. You've got a very, very narrow windscreen that reduces the frontal area and of course cuts your drag, and they've been able to do that because, as you can see, the passenger sits slightly further back in the Bohema, and that's not just for aerodynamics, it's also just a bit of ergonomics. It means you actually both get a bit of elbow room. There's none of that annoying fighting like you get on an aircraft where you're arguing over the armrest. What I really love though is the sort of laid back, slightly feet up nature of this driving position. It actually reminds me of lying down in the McMurtry Spieling. Building your own supercar is obviously very expensive, and that's why even in the 1990s, Ferrari used buttons from old Fiat, and Aston Martin still borrows interior bits and bobs from Mercedes. So fair play to Praga, everything in here is bespoke. The steering wheel is a mad shape, but it fits in your hands perfectly, and all of these carbon fibre buttons are unique. So what else? Well, you've got the indicators here, the horn, the flash, the slow people out of the way button, and even these wiper controls. They look so steampunk. Love them. Then down to my left down here, there are electric mirror adjusters. And then I love up here in the roof, you've got this aircraft style ignition switch, various other carbon fibre buttons, full heater and aircon, rotary controls. But if you need to demist the windscreen, maybe it's a bit frosty before your commute, then you just hit the demist button down here. Also all carbon fibre, that's right next to the hazards, and the launch control. But if things have got a little bit too hot and bothered, then you flip off this metal cover, which looked like something off Batman's utility belt, and you hit that big red button for the fire extinguisher. Lastly, you heard me mention earlier that the Bohema has a class-leading interior touchscreen, and I wouldn't lie to you. Here it is. Yep, you simply pull out this very elegant little spring-loaded phone holder, jam your chosen make in, it's completely compatible, Apple, Android, it doesn't matter. Then there's a convenient little USB socket just behind, and your Praga is fully connected. Spotify, Google Maps, Waze, voice control, whatever you want, it's all there because it's all already in the best possible touchscreen you could want, your smartphone. I mean, forget supercars. I don't know why all car manufacturers don't just give up on touchscreens and do this. Volkswagen, are you listening? While we wait for me to climb back out, I had a quick chance to drive the Bohema prototype at the Top Gear test track a couple of days before we shot this. The takeaways were that even on the bumpy access road, the suspension is freakishly compliant, the engine sounds angrier than any Nissan GTR, and it's incredibly friendly. The braking performance will pull your head off. The turn-in is electric, and even on a damp track, it had massive traction right up until I span it. So the traction control isn't quite idiot-proof yet, but it's still a hugely promising underdog, and the cornering performance is proper hypercar level stuff. Problem is, yeah, the price, well, that is hypercar level as well. The behemoth costs £1.1 million plus taxes, and that is a lot of money. But to be fair, Praga's boss makes a good point that demand for crazy hypercars doesn't appear to be going anywhere but up right now. And look at the new toys on the block. The new McLaren Solus, that's for track only. And there's Adrian Newey's new RB18 Red Bull, and he wants £5 million for one of those. Plus, the behemoth will be rare, and that matters. There's only 89 of these that are ever going to exist, with the first 10 or so arriving with first customers next year, which ought to give them just enough time to start training their necks.
The good news is that Praga is working on having the car certified not just in Europe, but in America, Asia and Australia. Plus, you get a 2-year warranty with 5,000 kilometres of track day cover. Oh, and the development driver is none other than ex-F1 and current IndyCar bloke Roman Grosjean.
Ooh la la. So there you go then, 2022's newest supercar. Does the world need another carbon fibre hyper missile? Well, you can argue no, but supercars, no matter how old they are always going to be super seductive and desirable. And you could argue that the rate at which technology is improving and also our times are changing right now, there's never been a better time to try and do a crazy supercar. And well, having driven this one, I can tell you there is huge potential in the behemoth. So good luck, Praga.
Welcome to Japan. It has incredible car culture.
Some of the nicest human beings on earth.
It has the best vending machines, which is really handy when you've got very bad jet lag.
Handy robots.
There's even a race circuit at the base of Mount Fuji.
We're here to check out a new race series, and one very special racing car in particular.
And it's this, the 9X8. This is Peugeot's new Le Mans hypercar. It's got a 2.6 litre turbo V6 and a hybrid system with four-wheel drive. It's got 671 brake horsepower and it weighs just over a tonne. So yeah, this is a fairly serious car. Now, Le Mans Hypercar and its sister series, Le Mans Daytona Hybrids, are a new endurance racing series that's been conceived to be a little bit more realistic, at least in terms of budgets, and replace the very expensive LMP1 class. It's kind of the dawn of a new era for the WEC, the World Endurance Championship, and I happen to think it is worth your attention.
So what's good about it? Well, it's cheaper than before, so that should encourage more teams and more variety, which is always good in competition. So far, alongside the Le Mans Daytona hybrids, there are entries from Peugeot, BMW, Glickenhaus, Alpine, Ferrari, Toyota and Porsche, amongst others. This is good.
But after that, the rules are a little bit freer. So every team has to use a specific chassis from one of 4 manufacturers, which keeps costs down. But after that, they can use any internal combustion engine that they want. So it gives them a lot of freedom in the way they power their car. When it's allied to a hybrid drive, you can then use it to power the front wheels to give all-wheel drive, boost up the rear wheels, or you can just use the engine to power the rear wheels on its own. What that means is that the cars will have a lot more character, they'll sound different, they'll look different on the track, and therefore you get more variety.
Oh, and there's balance of power regulations to keep the racing close and fair and make sure that one team doesn't whitewash the whole series. There's one tyre supplier, Michelin, and running a pair of hypercars will be 75% cheaper than LMP1.
That means you'll get private teams being able to mix it with the big manufacturer entries. And you'll also get cars that look like they've been designed by actual people instead of copy and paste racing cars with different liveries.
And that's why we're interested in Peugeot's effort, because the regulations limit aero downforce. It means that the designers can be more creative. And Peugeot has decided that it can produce all the ground effect it needs by using clever underbody aero and without the massive rear wing. And that makes the 9X8 look different.
I mean, just look at it. If good-looking cars are fast, then this thing is going to be lightning. And the basic structure is actually really interesting. So up here, we have a 200 kilowatt electric motor shrouded in a nose that actually looks like someone from Peugeot designed it. Okay, so it's not exactly a 308, but you do see the family resemblance. And then as you move down the car, come with me and look at this. There's the cockpit, which is a little bit wider than I first thought when I saw it in pictures, although the car seems to be very low and narrow. It's very slinky shaped. And as you move down, you see all the aero bits. And then when you get to the back, there's no massive rear wing that we're used to with these kind of racing cars. Because the requirement for downforce is a little bit lower in Le Mans Hypercar, Peugeot has gone a completely different direction. They've managed the airflow all over the top of the car and especially underneath it, so that this car produces enough downforce without a big wang. And also, as you'll notice, it still has Peugeot rear lights. It's not a 508, but you get where I'm going with it. It looks great.
Which is kind of the point. Cheaper racing for the manufacturers, more competition, style and character for the fans. A win all round. But they still have to work. So that's why we're here at the Fuji 6 Hours with Peugeot to get a handle on some of its final testing before the big campaign in 2023.
Now, you're the boss of Stellantis Motorsport.
Right.
So, why do motorsport? Why race cars? Because it's not exactly a Peugeot 308 that you've got in there.
It's not exactly. But if you do motorsport, it's because it's a passion. You can't do motorsport if it's not a passion.
I mean, the interesting thing is here, you've started a new, completely new series. Le Mans Hypercar is very different. So what is it about Le Mans Hypercar that's going to excite the fans? What's different to LMP1?
What is different to LMP1 is, I would say, the main difference is the cost to make this program affordable. So to make such a program, of course, it's a business decision. It's it's a technical laboratory for new technologies. The skills we are developing, the tooling, the development tools we are using on the architecture are already the same as on the 508 PSC. On the 508 PSC has already the energy management algorithm that have been developed for the 9X8.
Oh, so it's actually directly related?
Yes.
So this year's been kind of an installation, a little testing year, and then next year you're going to hit it hard. And you've got a car that looks very different to other Le Mans Hypercars. Why have you made it without big wings? Why doesn't it not look like an LMP1?
Yeah, you're right. This year is a learning year, but as we are racer, every time we are coming, even if we are learning, it's to win, so we'll do our best. The sport regulation is forcing geometry of the car.
Yeah.
On this car, it's a downforce coefficient, a drag coefficient, and as long as you are in this window, you can make the design you want. We make the bet instead of letting the motorsport engineer designing the car and after whistling the design style department to make it beautiful. We made, as on a road legal car, what we call a convergence design and technical. And the way we have worked is we were in a frame to fulfill the regulation. No compromise on performance, but with a lot of room of creativity for the design.
And pretty race cars are fast race cars.
Yeah,
So
yes.
if it's beautiful, it should be fast.
It's necessary to win, it's necessary to be beautiful.
I'm James Roster and I'm race driver for Peugeot Sport in the 9X8 for the World Endurance Championship. So LMH gives you a lot more freedom in the rules in terms of design. So you can design a beautiful car, you can have areas of the car that you can create your unique identity, but also you can implement your technology. So you can really build a car that has your philosophy, your team's ethics, and really build the project around the sort of guidelines that you want to showcase for your brand. The four-wheel drive is different to me. I never had raced a car that was four-wheel drive. This is something that's really unique to the hypercar class, and when you come out of the corners and that four-wheel drive kicks in, it's an amazing feeling. The car just flies out of the corners. You can be sort of on the edge of the limit of the car as you go into the corner, and then you get to the exit and you nail the throttle and the thing just flies straight out the corners. And this is something that's really unique to the hypercar class. The car itself to drive, it's okay, it's quite intuitive. Where it becomes really challenging is you have a lot of GT cars out there and you're overtaking them about every 6 to 8 laps. So you have to be really smart with your traffic management, your energy management. You can't just fly up behind one of the GT cars and expect him to move because he's flat out racing himself. So you have to be smart, you have to play a game of chess kind of with those GT cars, and you're also racing the other hypercars. So from that side, it takes a huge amount of concentration to race in the hypercar class. So we have obviously the regen on the front axle with our electric motor, so we recover 200 kilowatts of energy during braking from the front axle. This allows us to put the energy back into the battery to then deploy it on the exits. And where that becomes unique is it affects brake temperatures, so it affects your brake warm-up, it affects when the battery is at 100%, you don't have it. So you have to manage your battery state of charge, the SOC, which you might hear us referring to over the radio, is state of charge. And this is quite important to keep it always in the right window, to keep the battery temperature in the right window. So there is quite a lot of things technically to manage from the engineering side as well. With all the brands coming in now over the next couple of years, it's going to be incredible, the hypercar class. There's so many brands, it's going to be so competitive, and each one gets to showcase their unique technology. So I think it's going to be a great future for hypercar.
I guess what we're asking is whether this 9X8 is actually any good, or whether it's all mouth and no trousers. And to figure that out, well,
Let's go racing!
So here's the thing, the Peugeots actually look like Peugeots when they're out racing. And simple things like having lights that are recognisable at a distance, even in the day, make the 9X8 really easy to pick out. But you also really do notice that the 9X8 sounds different to, say, the Toyota GR010, and looks like a different class altogether. Smaller, more nimble, somehow slicker than the more traditional and very fast Japanese entry. And that's the point. This is great. So despite looking like a supermodel, the 9X8 got beaten. Toyota won this race at Fuji, which isn't unexpected, given that Fuji is home turf for the Toyota team. But Peugeot bought a car that looked completely different and remained competitive.
Having witnessed it, I think Le Mans Hypercars looks like a bit of a winner. Wait until next year when we've got 10 plus teams all swapping paint on the same bit of track. This could be the best thing to happen to endurance racing since ever. Bring on 2023.
Do you reckon we can start it up?
I think we should. Go for it.
Maybe some revs?
Yeah. There we go.
Ah, there we go. 6-foot flames coming out the back of that. Christian, we need to stop shopping at the same clothes shop.
Right, yeah. I guess this is still a building site and Sweden is pretty strict on rules, so we can't just roam around here freely until they give us the key, you know, so we have to follow the safety rules.
Of course, so we are in the new Koenigsegg factory. This is where the Gamera is going to be built, among lots of other exciting things that are going on. We will talk about that at the end, but first I want to focus on this incredible thing. So I actually got a chance to say hi in Monterey for Car Week at the Quail.
Right.
But
yes.
You were being swamped.
It was crazy. It was very crazy. I mean, we didn't know what to expect. This is kind of homage to our beginnings. It's very naked, simplistic, the kind of original idea of a Scandinavian supercar. And we felt that this is a good opportunity to kind of imprint the origins of Koenigsegg one more time, but taking it into the future with modern technology and improved ergonomics and whatever, safety and all of aspects. And the response was just staggering. We were shocked, actually. So.
I can tell you the response in the Top Gear office when we saw it was staggering. Everyone fell off their chair when we saw it. Looked so good. We knew Jesko underpinnings, this manual gearbox concept, which we'll come to in a minute. But first, tell me about the name, because that helps tell a bit of the story of the car.
Yeah,
right?
so it's already a twist on the name, a twist on a twist in a sense. So the first car we ever produced and delivered the first car to a customer in 2002 was a CC850, competition coupe, 8-cylinder supercharged. It took the Guinness World Record for the most powerful homologated production car in the world with 655 horsepower.
Whoa, 655!
Exactly, now that's bread and butter. So that was a great starting point for us. So we said, let's celebrate that car, make a homage but in a modern take, and make 50 of them. And there is no supercharger in this one, there's twin turbos, so we call it the CC850. And I also turned 50 this year. So it was kind of a good number, thank you. Good number, well, celebrating a little bit of that, celebrating 20 years of production and making 50 of them. But the interest was enormous, and we got some kind of loyal Koenigsegg customers come and say, I didn't even have a chance to get one, and this is like really annoying. So yeah, sorry, we didn't realize this kind of attention we would get. So very quickly, within 2 days, we came up with a little twist that we quickly cabled out, saying, okay, 50 for my 50th birthday, and then another 20 for celebrating 20 years of production. So we're actually doing 70 of them, and still there was a long queue of people who could not get in.
Yeah.
But at least we could get some loyalists and some other in that.
So you don't have to change the name to CC870.
And we're not doing that.
No, that would be one too far. So talk to me. So the design, it was fantastic. I remember the moment in the Quail. So I came around the corner, I saw it. Really, at first glance, it really does look like that original CC8S. But then you get closer and you see the detail, and it's like you go, "Oh, this is like a futuristic remake."
Yeah, I mean it's a bigger car. It's longer wheelbase. It's a little bit taller. Proportional wise, it's quite similar. But I mean, the original car had 18-inch wheels in the front and 19 or 18 with very big tires in the rear, a little bit like a McLaren F1. But now it's a 20 and 21-inch, 2,700 millimeter wheelbase, and of course the latest Jesko technology underpinnings. So it's not one nut or bolt, it's the same, but the impression is very similar.
Were there any problems with the aerodynamics? Because obviously you were trying to make it hit that original shape.
Yeah.
But obviously it needs to stick to the road and have stability and all of that stuff.
So the aerodynamics of the original cars were very good. First of all, from a drag perspective, we were like 0.28 in drag CD, so that was super low. But they didn't have so much downforce. They were quite neutral from that perspective. So here we worked more with a proper splitter, letting air out from the front wheels at the lower point there. We have vents in the bonnet that we managed to wrap around the luggage space so we can still get the roof in. We have this integrated rear wing, top-mounted active, fully active rear wing, which we pioneered on the Regera. So this is a version of that, and that of course gives much more downforce and braking stability at high speed. We have a much bigger diffuser, and some tweaks and details everywhere, a little bit more air outlet around the rear wheel. So
it's beautifully integrated. You wouldn't even know this was here, this spoiler. It just sits totally flush with the rear deck.
So we wanted to really hide it, as that's the original car did not have a wing. So, but when you go fast, it pops up and helps.
It's kind of necessary, right? And the engine, so the Jesko engine?
Yeah, a little bit over 5 liter, twin turbo V8s, same as the Jesko.
Yeah.
But it's slightly different turbo configuration, as this is a manual car as well.
Yeah.
Not that the Jesko has like any noticeable lag, but with the manual you want nothing of it. You want to have it feeling like a normally aspirated car. And our original supercharged CC8S, it had no hump either.
Yeah.
With a lot of power back in the days. So it's slightly less power than the Jesko. It's 1 megawatt, and the same. Well, 1 megawatt is 1360 horsepower. And
that's on the 85?
Yes, exactly. That's on the 85. And yeah, the weight, curb weight is the same number. So it's a 1-to-1
Oh, it's a 1-to-1.
ratio.
Which is, yeah, that's seriously fast.
Yeah, and yeah, so I think on normal petrol it's a little bit over 1200, so it's not laggard.
It's not slow. So it runs on E85. Does it have smaller turbos? Is that how you?
Yeah, slightly smaller turbos. Yeah, exactly. So a little bit less boost, a little bit less inertia, so better response.
Fantastic. And the triplex suspension. So we want to get really nerdy here, Christian, and tell people. So this is the same setup as the Jesko Absolute?
Yes, very much so. It's very similar. It's almost identical to the Jesko Absolute setup on suspension.
So this triplex damper but no spring.
Exactly. So it's a heave controller more than anything. To maximize takeoff grip. It's got this active suspension in ride height and bump and rebound. So when you set it up for track, it's still pretty firm, but then you can have a really comfortable ride on the normal road.
And it feels like more of a street car, this one, than the Jesko, which certainly the Jesko Attack, which is high downforce, super aggressive.
I mean, I think it's 3 times stiffer suspension setting on the Attack with all that downforce.
But all Koenigsegg's should have a certain level of trackability as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's a lot of fun on the track, and of course with less aggressive tires, a little bit softer setting, it's very driftable. There is no ragged edge to it. It's just very friendly.
And I forgot to say, of those, originally 50, now 70 cars, you're going to keep the first one for yourself.
Yeah, well, this is mine.
This is yours?
Yeah, this is mine.
This is your birthday present.
It's of course the first show car. It's the first one we built. It will need to be upgraded through the development program, but this is the one I'm going to keep.
This is the one. We've been alluding to that manual gearbox, which is just such an exciting idea. Why don't we see if we can take the roof off the car?
Yeah.
We'll place that to one side, and so we can get a really good look in the cabin. And then we can sit in and you can tell us everything you know about this manual gearbox. Right, tell me what I need to do to get this roof off.
So I will open the doors first.
Okay. He's doing this all from the key fob, by the way. We're not touching a thing. Hands free.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, here comes my door.
And then the roof is manual. It fits in the front. We can open the front and show that as well. So that's a tradition of Koenigsegg cars. You have this coupe shape. It is no drawback or giveaway that you actually can take off the roof. If you look at all the split lines, there is no extra split line or jump or hump or weirdness because it's a Targa top. It's all fully integrated. And then when you lift it off, you get really a roadster.
Have you got the whole thing?
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, look at the strength of the man.
You guys.
To be fair, it weighs a few kilos.
It's like 7-8 kilos.
It's not very heavy at all, is it? And you can store it in the front?
Yeah, you can store it absolutely in the front.
Yeah, you just don't have the special bag to...
Yeah, I want to put it in the bag, so
cool.
Doesn't scratch. But yeah, so now you have very much a roadster or convertible or whatever you want to call it.
Do you want to get in the driver's seat?
Yeah, sure.
And I'll sit next to you?
Absolutely.
That is the bit that you're not expecting. So, start from the beginning. So the light speed transmission.
Yes, so that we introduced for the Jesko. So it's our novel complete retake on a fast shifting paddle shift gearbox where we managed to remove a lot of components by compounding gears. So it's kind of like a derailing mechanism on a bike that you take one gear times another and get a total. So it's 3 times 3 gears, creating 9 gear ratios. Instead of having 9 gears or 8 gears. So it's the weight and size of a 6-speed, but you get 9 gears out of it.
And you have 6 clutches?
Yes. Well, 1 for reverse and then 1 for each gear set. So yeah, and that also means we don't need a clutch on the engine. And when we don't have a clutch on the engine, we don't need a flywheel on the engine. So we get the fastest revving engine or RPM build-up that we have seen on any production car as a result of the gearbox not needing a flywheel or clutch on the crank.
So say, was this where did the idea begin? Did it begin at, could I create a gearbox that didn't need a flywheel? Or was it about fast shifting or the fact that you can go from one gear to any other gear?
It kind of started out with how do we get more gears with less components and less weight. And then this no flywheel was a bit of an experiment. We realized we don't need a clutch there, but we might need a flywheel for the behavior of the car and the engine. But we said, let's try without it, and we started simulating. The engine was fine from a kind of harmonics perspective. And the drivability was super exciting because it's just electric response. So we managed with software to kind of catch it. I mean, it's much more of a wild thing when you don't have a flywheel to calm it down.
Yeah.
So we have to electronically make sure it doesn't just go wild.
Well, I had a chance to drive briefly the Jesko Attack in Monterey, just on the road. And you're right, the way that engine revs, it feels naturally aspirated, it sounds naturally aspirated. You don't notice the turbochargers really.
No, it's amazing. I mean, the sound of the engine is just what it wanted to be. We have not done any sound tuning, and not that we don't mind doing it if we have to, but it just naturally sounded amazing, so we just kept it. And it does sound normally aspirated for some strange reason.
It sounds angry.
Yeah,
it sounds very angry,
and it's responsive, and it's just alive. It's the most alive feel of an engine I've ever experienced. So
is it peak combustion engine? I know you're working on the 3-cylinder for the Gamera, but you know, this is the ultimate. You've got all the torque, all the power, all the response.
I haven't felt any engine as exciting as this one. And I've driven like really exciting V12s, this is just something different and unique and exhilarating beyond anything I've experienced. So yeah.
Okay, back to the gearbox. So the amazing Lightspeed transmission you then wanted to make it even more complicated by turning it into. So I've been referring to it as a simulated manual. Is that fair?
Well, it's kind of not unfair, but it's a lot going into it to make it act like a directly connected clutch and shifter. So, for example, when you're driving, you can't just put the gears in without the clutch, of course. There is a detent. And if you're coming from a too high gear, it won't allow you to push in until there is a closer rev match. When you're in gear, you can only pull it out without the clutch if you are not under load and rev matching. And if you move it really fast, there is more resistance like you would have with the synchronizations. And if you push the clutch really fast, there is more resistance as you would have with the hydraulic lines going back there. So it is, yes, augmented, but it's augmented in a way that all the kind of aspects of an analog shifter is considered. And on top of that, the clutch pedal, I mean, if you think of a throttle, it normally in old cars they had a wire or a cable or something like that. But since 20-30 years ago, it's all electronic. And the clutch pedal normally has a mechanical rod, or more modern cars they would have a hydraulic line. But that's the same thing they did with the throttle we did with the clutch pedal. So we are actually making sure that the clutch pedal, when you move it and the pressure you feel, it's direct one-to-one with the pressure on the clutches back there. So you can stall it, you can slip it, you can move backwards and forwards because we are not intervening. So there is no difference in sensation, like there is no difference in sensation to speak of with an electronic throttle.
Exactly. Wow. And you've got this exposed linkage down here, so you've got all that visual excitement with the gearbox.
And the advantage of doing this, then you can say like, okay, it would be more theoretically puristic if it was a linkage to the gearbox, but that would remove the chance to have a lighter gearbox, like we have more gear ratios with fewer gears. Also, it would not allow us to have no flywheel or clutch, so the engine would be more sluggish. So we can have a manual with the fastest revving engine with this system. And we can have varying gear ratios depending on which slot you're in, as we have 6 manual slots and 9 gear options. So for example, on track, first gear is a taller gear than on road, so you have a tighter gear set following there, because you're just driving out of the pits. You will not cook your clutch, just getting out of the pits.
So when you go in track mode, these ratios actually
change.
Adjust.
Exactly. And then, of course, when you're on the highway, you go over here, and you go over here, and then you have a 9-speed auto, which is another unique feature that you could not have with a traditional analog manual. So
And also, look, you were talking about this physical linkage, and then you'd need a flywheel, but it's not the Koenigsegg way. The Koenigsegg way is to experiment and push boundaries and produce technology that other people might shy away from. Maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
So we can have this all our cars are OTA upgradable. So we're starting out with this very analog, non-intervention manual system, just replicating what it would do. You can burn your clutch if you want and stall the car or whatever. Yeah. But we could over time kind of say, okay, a little bit beginner manual mode where we, like if you do some not great stuff, we smooth it out, we can rev blip and this and that. We can just add features over the air.
Can I feel the action?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, open gate manual, yes.
When it's on and active, you get more resistance.
Yeah.
So now it's just parked. So
it feels fantastic. And where are you with the development of this?
I would say this is a sample. I would say it's more than 80% level of being like ticked off. We're doing some tweaks, some sensor improvements, but it's we're already driving around with it. It's already fun. It's already great. But you can always push a bit further, and we're not going to deliver these cars for another year or so. So therefore, we have time to just make that little extra effort as well.
So we need to talk about this space we're in now. So the Jesko, we had a tour of the factory. There obviously customer cars are now being built in the original factory over there.
Absolutely. Which is connected to this one.
Which is connected to this one, yeah. But this new space, I'm told it's going to be ready for the machinery to be installed by March.
Yeah, I think a little bit earlier maybe.
Really?
I mean, they're on schedule with the building, which is amazing, and maybe a few weeks ahead. You know? So I think latest March we're putting in the machine.
Fantastic. So, and tell me, what will be happening in this new building then?
So mainly this is the Gemera production plant for the 4-seater, which is the highest volume car we've ever endeavored to do.
How many can you build a year?
So good question. We're setting up this facility to be capable in itself to do one car a day, but there are other aspects making it probably not going to be one car a day for some years.
Sure.
There is the supplier network. We have to make all the carbon fiber parts. Customers tend to go wild on specification, which tends to slow things down.
Yeah.
But we invested in this facility to be capable as a facility and with the personnel to get one car out a day.
Yeah.
So I think for the first year it will be like one car every 2.5 every third day or something like that. And
so maybe 100 cars. Over 100 cars in the first year.
Yeah, absolutely, something like that.
But you're used to building 30 to 40
Correct.
a year, so
yes.
this is
a
big step.
Percentage-wise, it's huge, and it's like if you have a normal car company doing 100,000 cars, so suddenly they're going to do 300,000 cars.
Yeah.
This is the similar step for us.
Sure.
On our level. So still very few, of course, but everything is handmade and bespoke, and so that's the challenge.
But it's so exciting. Haldora was giving me a tour earlier, and it's not just the factory, it's the opportunity to build all these amazing spaces over there for your customers and for events. And
specification lounge, customer area, a little bit museum, and then we have a big space to do unveils for a couple of hundred people. And then actually, I don't know if you talked about it as well, there's a new design studio we decided 2 weeks ago, which there was an available space up in the corner of 1,000 square meters. So
it's like a brand new start.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It's a brand new start.
Exciting.
Yeah. Wow. So 28 years ago you started this company.
Yes.
20 years ago you produced the CC850.
We delivered the first customer car.
Did you think you'd be here, standing in this enormous space?
Well, of course I couldn't foresee exactly this, but I never limited my thinking to what it could be. I knew I was going up against giants. I knew it was not going to be easy. I thought I'll build one car, hopefully someone likes that. I'll build another one, hopefully someone likes that. And who knows where that will go, I will keep on doing that. That was the plan. So in my mind, when I started, it could be like, maybe I'll make 5 cars, 1 car, maybe it's 500 or 500,000. I have no idea. I'll just keep on going and see where it takes me,
Do you know what I love? It gives me another excuse to come back and see you at the factory in March or the middle of next year, when this place is up and running, and I can't wait. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
Good to see you. Thank you for coming.